hold on. You know what hurts momentum? And yes, there's a lot of things you can point to, but personally, I'm stuck here because, and we'll just get into it now. Like Dan Campbell's aggressiveness, a lot of what he's done for this team since he's been here, he's helped them win games. Like I'm not going to deny that. Him being aggressive, right? It's helped them get to this point. Now, why we bring up feel for the game in some instances is you have the crowd out of it. The 49ers fans are out of the game. Once you coming out of halftime, like I just went through, right? Turnover on downs, they come out, they score. Turnover on downs, they score again. Now the momentum's shifting. Like you're getting the crowd, you're allowing them back in the football game. Brock Purdy's getting his confidence, and that's when the pendulum started swinging in the 49ers' favor. And once you gave that crowd life, and you gave that 49ers team life, like we talked about it all week about how Kyle Shanahan, when he doesn't have the lead, it's tough to play from behind. Like, no, he showed that even in the second half, being down 3 scores, like they persevered, and it was frustrating as much as we backed Dan Campbell, but man, he gave that team life. He gave that fan base life, and that's what came back to bite them in the ass, especially late in the game. You're down 10. I know he didn't take the field goal, and if you go back and look at the analytics, it was basically the same percentage. You take the field goal or you don't. They're pretty even. So it was really Dan's call, and he decided to go for it. And I get it. If they go for it and they make it, everyone's happy. But risking something like that, if you kick the field goal, Badgley made one against the Rams, a 50-plus yarder, then you're only down 7. So when you do get the ball back, we got to go down. We get to tie the game. Going for it, that was it. Like, he didn't get it, game over. You're down 10 with, 3 minutes left? It's over. Like, you have to get you have to convert some bogus shit to get the ball back, which they unfortunately couldn't do. So, yes, that to me is when the real pendulum swung. You allowed that crowd back in the game, and it came back to bite him in the ass.
And I think, too, like that first fourth down in the third quarter, that 4th and 2 with Josh Reynolds, you're at the 28-yard line. Like, we talked about it 2 weeks ago in the playoffs, like games that matter. You take the points because points are hard to come by in games like this. Obviously, it was a higher scoring game. So, like, obviously, like you felt like you could go score a touchdown, especially for what you did in the first half. So it was the first possession of the second half. So they were like, we feel like we can go score. But at that point, it's like you have full control of the football game. They're like the only times you should be aggressive, in my opinion, and Dan usually is, it's like when you're like not fighting back, but it's a close game or you're behind and you have to get an extra possession. Like that's when you go. But when you have a what was it at the time? I don't even know. 14-point lead or 17, whatever it was at the time when they didn't get that first one.
The 14 because
you
they
take
would
the
have made
field
it a
goal.
3-possession game again.
Yes, you take the field goal and you just keep that momentum. Like, because if you have more to lose going for it than you have to gain. Like, even if you get it, you still have to go score a touchdown and go down. You still might just end up with the field goal. But if you don't get it, you give a team that's down 14, you give them all of the momentum in the world. And that's exactly what you did. Instead of going and just kicking the field goal, keeping the momentum, you went out there, they got the 4th down stop when you could have just got points, and you just gave them every single piece of momentum that you had in the first half. And that was on you. And that's where I'm at. I think that first 4th down was the biggest one that changed the game because you gave them the momentum. You literally just put it on a plate for them and said, here you go, a silver platter. And he said, here's the momentum. And that's all that happened. Whether he dropped it or not, I don't care. When you take those points and you go back up 3 possessions with less than a quarter and a half to go, that game is like you have the momentum like that. That changed everything. And then you fumble it the next time you get it, which was just very, very unrealistic, like uncharacteristic from the Lions too.
Yeah,
Joe Westfall, you can shut up, Joe.
I get
Joe.
where Dan was coming from, but it was the wrong call at the end of the day. If they get it, everybody's cheering. But the call that really blew my mind on top of that was running the ball on 3rd and goal with David Montgomery. That made me lose my mind in many ways because now, especially when they just burn the timeout right after you, it's like, all right, that's game. Because Michael Badgley's not kicking an onside kick. And it's just like that is where it really questioned, where it's just like they lost their identity in that second half. They truly did. Even to get down the field on that 4th and 2, they were running David Montgomery. David Montgomery was having his way that whole game. And then after Jameer had that fumble, they're like, all right, we're not running the ball anymore. Jameer I don't even think had 10 yards in the second half. David Montgomery definitely didn't have 20. That's just what happens in the third quarter, and that's when the Lions start losing their identity. They trying to get too cute. That's when stuff happens like that. So it's just frustrating. I don't know, man. I think there's definitely some blame to go on Ben Johnson as well, in my opinion. He's a great coordinator, but we've talked about it numerous times.
Said
like
it
in
Friday.
Second halves, he turns into somebody else, and he almost tries to get too cute, and that was a factor in this game.
Yep.
Yeah, I won't argue that going away from running the football was just it was blasphemy. Like they had 140, 150 yards, excuse me, at halftime. They ended the game with a 182. So what got them there? What got them the lead? They went away from. But the problem is there's so much. To me, there's a lot of blame to go around. Like we bring up the Dan Campbell decision, but there's other things. Like I think again, if they convert those fourth downs, like especially the Josh Reynolds not coming down with that catch, like those are huge plays. So I don't think there was one specific play that costed them. If I had to bring up the biggest play that I think meant the most, it would have to be them. They have to convert that fourth down at the end of the game. You're down 10. If you get that, like if you're gonna go for it, okay, but you better fucking get that, because that's live or die right there. At least I would, and I can't believe I'm saying this because you know how I feel about the kicker. Like, just
and Adam just put in there, like look at the kicker stats recently, like not bad stats if we're being honest.
Here,
and at the end of the day. Yeah, and at the end of the day, there was a comment too that was saying, I think it was the guy that told me to shut up, Joe Westfall. He said something about, we don't give the ball back to that trash defense. Listen, when you had 4th and 2 at the 28 in the third quarter, guess what? Your defense only gave up 10 points at that point. And I'm not saying they were playing great, but they only gave up 10 points. They only started scoring when they got the stop on 4th down and the momentum shift and the crowd got into it and everything changed in that football game. So
even then, defensively in the third quarter, like the Lions defense just fell apart as well. Like
but guess what? If your defense was to fall apart,
that's a huge reason. Like if the Lions defense was playing like that through the whole game, I really don't think Dan goes for it in those moments. But this is where he lives and dies. He has complete. Hold on, Booner, let me finish.
No, they gave up 10 points to that first 4th down. They didn't give up 8 touchdowns. It was a 10. They had 10 points when they went for it on 4th and 2.
Lions defense wasn't
the
giving
momentum
up points.
changed in that offense, and the defense started playing like trash. When the
Booner,
momentum
you are 100% correct. I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is Dan going for it on those 4th downs is because his defense was allowing 10 points. If that defense was getting shredded like they did in that second half, I don't think Dan goes for it then.
They weren't getting shredded until after he went for it.
I just said that. I literally just said that. What I'm trying to say is this is where Dan he lives or dies because he has ultimate trust in his players offensively and defensively. The defense fell apart, especially with the momentum swing. When you have those corners out there, I don't think it's that smart to do in that situation. If they were to have a better corner play because they were missing tackles all night in the secondary and they were able to keep that offensive limited, I get where he's coming from. Try to keep that offense off the field. Our defense is playing well, but to Booner's point, you can't do that with that defensive personnel against that offense, in my opinion. I understand where he's coming from, but that is just not the team to do it against.
I think we're obviously everyone's frustrated. Like this is
I'm seeing Jonathan James Booner. I'm interrupting.
You're yelling at me when I'm making your point. You're yelling at me when I'm making your point.
Hey, some positivity. Kyle Bird became a YouTube member.
Shout out Kyle Bird. I'm not happy today.
Yeah, guys.
Joe Westfall, you don't know anything about ball, buddy. Don't know anything.
Booner, we literally just agreed, and you were yelling at me for me to try to get my point out. Just breathe.
I'm frustrated. Let me be frustrated.
For a second.
No, take that tie and let me be frustrated.
No, because when we get to CJ Gardner-Johnson, I'm
don't really care
the
about
judge.
That
well, here we'll get to CJ. I just want to say this before we move on here, and I want to get to people kind of giving their opinions in the chat. I want to make sure their voices are heard too. But guys, where I'm at is this: like you're on the road in an NFC Championship game. You take every opportunity. You take the points, and that's why I was happy he took the points early. I know it was 4th and 2.
When he did that, that's when I was like, oh my God. When he was at the 2 or 3 yard line and he kicked a 3, I was like, he's playing like this today. He would have. I was like, oh my God.
Because you're up, and just to go back, so we kind of know. Okay, so they kick that field goal up. You go up 24-7 before halftime, and then you come out of halftime, right? And the 49ers kick a field goal. and then the game becomes 24-10. Like if I'm the Lions, you get down in field goal range, you kick a field goal. Like you just keep three. Even if you just keep kicking field goals, you have to distance your dude. You're on the road. Like, and this is a team almost like a sleeping giant. Like, yeah, they had 7 points at halftime, and Dan even talked about it. They knew in the locker room this team's coming. Like they're going to score in the second half. They're going to make this thing a game. So why not just take every opportunity you can to get points? Like, even if you, and again, it's Dan Campbell's like, and they call him Dan Gamble, right? And it's funny. And of course, no one wants him fired. He's the head coach. He's done a damn good job. But I want to say this. It feels like Dan walks into a casino. He puts his money down on blackjack, whatever the hell you play. He doubles it, right? Then he puts all the winnings back on the same thing. Okay, wins, he doubles that. And then he doubles that. And then he doubles that. Instead of being like, you know what, I'm going to take majority of it and put it in my wallet and put a little bit on. He goes, we're going to go all in because it's what got me here, right? Like this money is what got me here. And then he loses and goes, well. And then people would say, well, that aggressiveness got you there. Like, no, guys. Like there has to be a point where you go.
Be smart.
You have to be like, at one point, and I'm not saying, at one point, just be like, you know what? We're in an NFC Championship game. He knows how hard it is to get to especially to this game and this franchise to get to this game. It's been a long, long time. Just take the 3 at the end of the game. If you miss it, at least we can sit and be like, you know what, Dan, you need a new kicker.
Yeah, I go back to
at least he gives Badgley a chance. Like Badgley is on the fucking sideline. He's like, oh, okay, we're going for it. Oh, they didn't get it. Like you suck the momentum out of that fucking stadium. Like that's what's frustrating.